to share with the House. So, Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister.
Copies will be circulated shortly. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to update this Honourable House on the unprecedented level of international financial support for Jamaica following Hurricane Melissa, and to outline how this support aligns with our structured, disciplined, and forward-looking national reconstruction strategy. Madam Speaker, the international community has responded to Jamaica with remarkable solidarity, urgency, and confidence. Yesterday, the 1st of December 2025, the international financial institutions, the IMF, the World Bank Group, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean Development Bank, jointly announced a 3-year coordinated financing package of up to $6.7 billion to support Jamaica's US dollars, to support Jamaica's recovery, reconstruction, and long-term resilience. Madam Speaker, even before the announcement of this substantial international financing package, we already had in place a multi-layered disaster risk financing framework, which was the product of years of strategic planning, disciplined financial management, and proactive investment in resilience. This framework enabled rapid early response and the immediate mobilization of liquidity to meet the most urgent needs following Hurricane Melissa within days. Jamaica activated several instruments across our risk financing architecture. We had approximately Jamaican $5.3 billion in the contingencies fund and $1 billion in the National Natural Disaster Reserve Fund. We received US $91 million from the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, CRIF, one of the largest payouts ever made in the region. And then we had the US $150 million under the catastrophe bond, triggered immediately based upon parametric thresholds. In addition, we had US $285 million available through the IDB's contingent credit facility for rapid liquidity support, which was upsized to $300 million, and US $42 million scalable to US $84 million available on request under the World Bank's catastrophe deferred drawdown option. Madam Speaker, this totals approximately US $662 million in liquidity that was available almost immediately following the hurricane. This is the very definition of planning, preparedness, and responsible governance. Our multi-layered approach ensured that Jamaica did not wait helplessly for external support. We were prepared and ready to act, ready to deliver, and ready to protect our people. However, Madam Speaker, the scale of the disaster is without precedent in our history. The widespread infrastructure damage, displacement of thousands of families, the destruction of livelihoods, and the long-term economic impacts mean that additional financing is required to support the reconstruction effort and to build a more resilient Jamaica. It is against this backdrop of strong national preparedness that the international community has now rallied behind Jamaica, recognizing that we are not merely seeking help. We are ready to lead, ready to rebuild, and ready to transform. Madam Speaker, the US $6.7 billion financing announced yesterday has three main components. US $3.6 billion in sovereign debt financing, This is for the government to execute the National Recovery and Reconstruction Program over the next 3 years and includes up to $1 billion each from the World Bank, IDB, and CAF. US $415 million from the IMF under the large natural disaster window of the RFI, and US $200 million from the CDB, the Caribbean Development Bank. The second category of funding, second component of funding, would be US $2.4 billion in private capital mobilization. IDB Invest, the International Finance Corporation, and the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency will mobilize private investment through public-private partnership models. Madam Speaker, it is important to note that mobilizing private capital will be critical not only to scale up recovery efforts, but also to preserve fiscal space. It is not intended for the sovereign debt pool. This is not intended, Madam Speaker, for the sovereign debt pool, and the private financing pool will operate independent of each other. The plan is to use innovative public-private partnership solutions and structures that blend public and private finance and expertise throughout the recovery and reconstruction process. The third component would be grants and technical assistance. The third important component of the overall financing package would see the 5 institutions committing to provide technical assistance and policy advice services. This would include, they would provide, Madam Speaker, policy advisory services, which would be funded by grants that draw on global experience and best practices in disaster response. So far, US $12 million in grants would have already been mobilized from the IDB, the World Bank Group, and the CAF, with more to come. Madam Speaker, these 3 components, in addition to the $662 million that was already available, is what makes up the overall financing package of $6.7 billion US. This is the single largest and most comprehensive development financing package ever assembled for Jamaica. It gives us the liquidity, the fiscal space, and the multi-year investment framework required to rebuild stronger and more secure for our future. Securing support of this magnitude within 1 month of Hurricane Melissa is nothing short of historic. It reflects sustained, direct, and proactive engagement at the highest level. Over the last several weeks, we have had extensive engagements with the heads of the IMF, the IDB, the World Bank Group, CAF, and the CDB, as well as other leaders at the G20. But, Madam Speaker, let us be clear. Engagement alone would not have produced this outcome. The swift, coordinated response from the IFIs is a direct vote of confidence in Jamaica's governance. It reflects the credibility we have built through the years of fiscal discipline in managing our economy, in reducing our debt, in strengthening institutions, in managing corruption, which is the lowest of any period of government, especially on the PNP side, by any measure of any index that has been used. It is the lowest. A point that must be made. And it stands unchallenged. So, the swift and coordinated response is a vote of confidence in the administration of the affairs of Jamaica. Madam Speaker, Jamaica today stands as a credible, responsible, and trustworthy sovereign. And it is that credibility which unlocked this extraordinary level of global support at our moment of greatest need. This morning, the Minister of Finance and myself, we met with the heads of the institutions to outline the next steps, align implementation pathways, and prepare for rapid disbursement. Madam Speaker, the message from the IFIs, that is the international financial institutions, could not have been clearer. They told us directly that Jamaica, already the case study of fiscal responsibility for the world, now has the chance to become the poster child for post-disaster recovery and reconstruction. They commended the government for the decision to establish the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NARA, noting that few countries act so quickly to set up a modern, best practice central coordinating body to drive recovery with discipline, transparency, inclusivity, and a long-term vision. Madam Speaker, these institutions are not looking at Jamaica as a country in crisis. And for that matter, it should be said, neither is the government.
House Leader.
Madam Speaker, with the Prime Minister's time for speaking having expired, we ask that he be extended to complete his presentation. 10 minutes.
Question is that the Prime Minister be allowed 10 minutes to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, these institutions are not looking at Jamaica as a country in crisis, and for the record, neither is the government. We see this as an opportunity. They are looking at Jamaica as a global standard setter. The world is watching Jamaica, not just with empathy, but with admiration, respect, and expectations. We now have a rare opportunity to show what a small nation, united in purpose and confident in its future, can achieve on the global stage. Madam Speaker, the resources being mobilized are aligned with clear, disciplined, multi-phase national reconstruction strategy. Phase one of the strategy is the stabilization and the provision of essential services. The first phase of the strategy is focused on the restoration of electricity, water, connectivity, food, shelter, and key transportation links. As these stabilize, relief, which is the provision now of the food and the water and other such items, will transition in December, or probably a little later, maybe early January, from physical distribution to targeted financial support through a voucher system, whether digital or physical, restoring dignity, autonomy, and choice to affected Jamaicans. Phase two, which is the economic and social recovery. So that next phase will be the reopening of schools, restoration of health facilities, support for farmers, small businesses, and tourism operators, and the reactivation of the local economy. Already we have begun that, Madam Speaker. A central pillar of the government's national recovery strategy is direct support for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, the backbone of Jamaica's economy and the most vulnerable to prolonged disruption. The MSMEs are essential to employment, rural livelihood, supply chain recovery, and the restoration of commercial activity across the island. Ensuring their swift restart is therefore critical to Jamaica's overall economic rebound. In this context, the Development Bank of Jamaica has launched its Business Recovery Program, a comprehensive package to restore operations across agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, and health, with a strong focus on MSMEs. To capitalize this program, Cabinet has approved $3 billion Jamaican dollars in funding for the remainder of the 2025-2026 fiscal year. Further allocations will be made for the coming budget. Then, phase 3, resilient reconstruction. Madam Speaker, this third phase will focus on resilient considerations. This is the heart of our long-term strategy. Every major investment will reflect stronger engineering, climate-ready design, and future-proofing. This includes resilient housing, rebuilding schools, hospitals, and public buildings to higher resilient standards, including relocating them where necessary. Climate-smart roads and bridges, coastal and river defense systems, including natural defenses. Strengthened public utilities and grid resilience. Digital and transport infrastructure to support productivity. Our reconstruction is not merely about restoring what was lost. It is about building a stronger, more competitive Jamaica capable of withstanding future climate shocks. Madam Speaker, we will approach reconstruction as a growth-inducing strategy. I know from this that the question will be asked, why are we celebrating more debt? We are not celebrating more debt. What we are celebrating is the opportunity to make a massive investment in our infrastructure, in our people, in the services that improve productivity. And it is that investment, Madam Speaker, that will expand our economy relative to our debt. And therefore, in short order, you can look forward to growing, increased revenue, and a relatively smaller debt to the size of your economy. We have never before had an opportunity to spend $6.7 billion relative to our GDP. We have never had that opportunity. US and our GDP is somewhere in the region of about 17 to 18 billion dollars, 19 billion dollars, thereabout. The Minister of Finance reminded me, $20 billion. You're proud, as are we, proud of the fact. Yes, $20 billion. So you get an opportunity to, within 3 years, to deploy $6.7 billion relative to your $20 billion GDP. So you can see the opportunity to expand the economy. And that's what the strategy is. And I'm encouraging all Jamaicans, regardless of political persuasion, to embrace this opportunity, to shift from crisis mode, to move from disputes over the distribution of a care package here or some lumber there, and start to think, how are we going to play our part in the new possibilities provided here for all Jamaicans to benefit? So, the reconstruction effort being deployed across infrastructure, housing, digitalization, logistics, agriculture, and energy will create thousands of jobs, crowd in private investment, improve national productivity, protect fiscal sustainability, because make no mistake, there will be those looking on at our currency and say, can the central bank defend? Do we have reserves? Well, with this, we will be in a superior fiscal position to give confidence and certainty to our business sector. We will turn this moment of crisis into an opportunity to transform. Madam Speaker, Jamaica has never lacked ambition. What we have lacked for decades is the financial wherewithal to match that ambition. Today, that has changed. For the first time in our history, our national development vision is backed by a robust, multi-year, multi-partner financing envelope. Madam Speaker, we now have a clear reconstruction strategy, an empowered institutional framework, unprecedented international support, and a united national will. This government will move forward with urgency, discipline, and transparency as we lead Jamaica into a new era of resilience, recovery, and growth. I thank you, Madam Speaker.